All right, let's speak now to seismologist John Ristau, who joins us now live from Wellington in New Zealand. Great to have you on the programme. If you can just talk to us about what you believe that the priorities are right now and what those search and rescue teams are doing as they work through the rubble, trying with such hope to find people alive. And of course, it is now just, it is over 24 hours since that first earthquake hit Türkiye.
Well, I guess as a seismologist, I would say for the priorities or what the search and rescue teams should be watching out for and being very aware of is the aftershocks that are going to be continuing to happen. There can be some very sizable aftershocks. We're talking magnitude 5s and 6s, and you can have buildings that have already been damaged and weakened by the main shocks, and so even moderate-sized aftershocks could cause these buildings to sustain further major damage or even collapse. So we have to be very.
And just to interrupt you, sorry, John, there has been one in the last hour, an earthquake of a magnitude 5.6 has struck central Turkey. That's from the European, the Mediterranean Seismological Center. What impact does that have? And we're just looking here at Adana, the city of Adana in Türkiye.
Well, again, I guess every earthquake that happens, every sizable aftershock that happens is going to cause further damage, and any buildings, any structures that have already been weakened that normally might withstand a magnitude 5.6 or an earthquake like that could actually be very weakened and could actually collapse or have pieces falling off them and injuring people and causing casualties.
And how, when you look at the sheer scale of devastation in Turkey, and of course we know it's affected Syria as well, how do you think these search and rescue teams prioritize their efforts right now, given the scale, the magnitude of the area that has to be covered?
Well, that's very difficult for me to say, as someone who's not who's not living in the area or isn't too familiar with the area. I guess that the search and rescue teams, they need to very much coordinate with each other and with all the local officials and local experts to try and zero in, try and find out where the most damaged areas are, and to try and get in there and focus their efforts in those places and trying to help people and trying to make sure that that the citizens, that the people affected are being looked after, and making sure that these people have, or trying to make sure that these people have the supplies they need, that where they might have to go on for days on end without any electricity or running water, so to try to make sure they have ample supplies of food and water to get through this.
And John, going to your area, of course, of specialization, and I'm asking about the priorities there of the rescue and search operation, because that's what we're looking at, and of course, the magnitude of this is unprecedented. And why has this been so deadly from a seismological point of view? And did it surprise you?
Well, what's not surprising is that Turkey had a major earthquake. Of course, people living in that area know that Turkey is a very seismically active country and has major earthquakes quite often. But where many of the earthquakes in the past have been focused is what's known as the North Anatolian Fault, which runs in northern Turkey, kind of roughly in an east-west direction, where in the 20th century there were several major earthquakes along there. Where this earthquake happened, the 7.8, was on the East Anatolian Fault, which borders between Turkey and Syria. And even though it's a seismically active area, there typically are not as many major earthquakes. They have happened in the past, magnitude 7 size earthquakes, but not as often as on the North Anatolian Fault. So in that sense, this earthquake was a little bit more unexpected. And then the fact that you had a 7.8 earthquake and then a few hours later a 7.5 happening in just about 100 kilometers to the north.
So put that in perspective for us. It is unprecedented in Turkey and globally as well. How does this compare to anything you've seen before, regionally and globally?
Yeah, well, to have two earthquakes of that size occurring within a few hours of one another in the same area, I can't think of another place in the world where that's ever happened. You can have, situations where you have a 7.8 and then like you had the 7.8 and then initially the largest aftershock of 6.7. That in itself is not unusual. But to have two earthquakes of this size occurring within a few hours, that does not happen very often. Again, I can't think of an example of that. However, one thing always to keep in mind is that when you do have a major earthquake like the 7.8, aftershock forecasts will always say that the most likely time to have another large earthquake, similar in size or larger, is immediately after you have just had a major earthquake. That's not the most likely scenario. Most likely is that you have a bunch of smaller aftershocks and things diminish over time in size and frequency. But to have another major earthquake, that the most likely time is immediately after you've just had a major earthquake.
Incredible what you're saying there. I just want to bring you here to where we're broadcasting from, Istanbul, of course, the most populous city in Turkey. Your thoughts about the earthquake risks for this city?
Well, not knowing too much about what the building structure is in the city, but the structures that are going to be most vulnerable to earthquake shaking, especially to the really high frequency shaking that a large earthquake can produce, are going to be structures made of like concrete, brick, masonry. Ones like that are the ones that are going to be most vulnerable to earthquakes. Steel reinforced structures made out of wood, typically fare much better. So if this city has a lot of these, brick and mortar and concrete type structures, they'll be more at risk to having severe damage from earthquakes. But I'm not familiar with what the building codes and what the building structure is in that city.
John, and just very, very briefly, the main takeaway for our viewers right now would be that twin earthquakes of this magnitude that we've seen, a 7.8 followed by a 7.5, is something that you've never seen anywhere in the world. Did I understand correctly?
Yeah, not that I can think of off the top of my head. Anyways, that this ever happened. Not that it never has happened, but I can't think of a situation just immediately.
So when we say unprecedented, that word really does apply, doesn't it?
Yeah. Certainly very rare anyway.
Very rare. John Ristau, fantastic to get your expertise on this very sad, tragic story here in Turkey. Seismologist John Ristau speaking to us from Wellington in New Zealand. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.